The question is, did you ever fly over commercial airports? That was the question from my wife. Yes. I think it was the 1982 or 83 Toronto Air Show. I was a participant, and we took an SR-71 there, and it was 3 crew members went. 1 crew flew it in, 1 crew flew the second day air show, and the 3rd crew, which was myself, flew just a couple of flybys at the 3rd day of the air show, and then actually flew the aircraft back to Beale Air Force Base. And the Toronto Air Show is over the, what is it, Labor Day weekend? Is it the Labor Day weekend in September? What's the first? It's Monday. Yeah, that's when they always have it. And and it's a holiday weekend. So when I came back into the Sacramento area, and I was descending down to land at Beale, and we had a lot of fuel, and we had to work on the holiday. And I said, I asked the backseater, I said, you want to make an approach at Sac Metro? And he said, can we do that? And I said, why not?
You can do anything once.
Yeah, exactly. So I, on approach control, when we got over to approach control, I asked if Sac Metro was available for an approach, and they said they switched us over to Sac Metro, and they cleared us for an approach. So as we were coming down final, and we had configured the airplane with the gear down, and we're about 2 miles out on final, I asked the controller, they switched us over to tower, and I asked the tower, I said, would you like a flyby down the runway or down the ramp? And the guy said, down the ramp. And I said, okay. I sucked the gear up and I pushed the power up, and we started heading towards the ramp, towards the tower. And as we were approaching it, I rolled the plane up away from the tower and lit the afterburners. And we went around and made a pass, and the tower controller said, beautiful, beautiful, come back and do another one. And I said, I better not, I'm going to go to Beale. So we went back to Beale and we landed, and as I mentioned, holiday weekend, and Colonel Lonnie Liss was he was the DO. He was the director of flight operations, the DO. Sorry?
Straight Lonnie.
Straight Lonnie, yeah. Anyhow, so he met us when we pulled in the hangar after we landed. As I mentioned, that was the normal procedure. And I thought, well, that's nice that he came out. As I came down the ladder from the aircraft, he looked at me and he said, Maury, and I said, yes, sir. He said, do we have any regulations that say we can't make approaches at Sacramento Airport? I said, no, sir. I want one on my desk at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, there's a continuation to this story. I retired in '87 and flew with United Airlines. When I had previously flown for United. I had a break in service. When I went back to United, I was a 760 co-pilot, Boeing 767 co-pilot. And one of my, that first year in '87, I think it was either the fall of '87 or the winter of '88, right after the new year, I was flying a 767 from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco. And an air traffic controller wanted to know if they could ride in the cockpit. And the captain of the plane signed it off. They have that privilege, or if they want to do that. And the aircraft, normally when they do that, if there's an empty seat somewhere, the captain will ask one of the flight attendants to stick him in an empty seat in the back of the plane. The plane was full. So this young lady was the air traffic controller. She came in. She's quite an attractive young lady. And the captain I was flying with was, I don't know if he was married or not, but I know he was a big flirt. I hadn't flown with him before. So I was flying. It was my leg from D.C. to San Francisco. You would trade off flying legs in the airlines. And we're flying, and he's just talking to her halfway across the country. And at some point, he asked her how long she'd worked at San Francisco Airport, and she hadn't been there that long. She said, I used to work Sac Metro. So this is, I think it was 1988. And I looked over my shoulder at this young lady, and I said, were you working Sac Metro in 82 or whatever it was, 82 or 83, and looked at me and she said, "Yeah, I was. Why do you ask?" And I said, "Were you working tower when the SR-71 buzzed it?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, I was. How did you know that?" And I told her it was me, and she started laughing, and she said, "You scared the hell out of people." She said there were people in the terminal that dived to the ground. They thought the airplane was going to hit the terminal.
Good job.
It's called the LA Speed Story. And it was just a story about one day it was really cool being SR-71 pilot. Walter and I were doing a training mission around the United States where you just were building up hours and time. And we take off out of Beale, hit a tanker in Idaho, rip on up to Montana, zip across Denver, hang a right turn in Albuquerque, out over Los Angeles, up to Seattle, back into Sacramento, 2 hours, 21 minutes. And you just do that then you do it backwards, and you hit a tanker or two. It was just to gain crew coordination, build your hours. We're on our last training mission. We're over Tucson. I can see downtown LA from Tucson. We're at 89,000 feet. I can see the whole western United States bathed in a warm October fall glow. I can see the chain of Rocky Mountains from Canada to New Mexico. I could just see the most beautiful picture laid at my feet, and the air as smooth as glass. Not a gauge moving in the cockpit. It was perfect. Now I'm thinking, we bad. And I feel sorry for Walter because he has to monitor 5 radios in the back seat, so I flipped the switch up just to listen. And LA Center is they control all, when you fly Southwest Air, the guys controlling everybody. But we're above controlled airspace. So they have us on their scope, but they're not talking to us. Now there's controllers all over the country. Jacksonville Center, Chicago Center, Seattle Center, It's the same guy. They all talk the same. And it's really cool the way they talk because they make you feel important as a pilot. They don't just say, yeah, okay, here's your thing. They make you feel really cool. So sure enough, this was pre-GPS days. Some Cessna guy has to know his ground speed. LA Center, Cessna, November Tango Alpha. You got a ground speed readout for us? Now Center would like to say, who cares, get off free. But no, he'll talk to him like he's John Glenn. Cessna November Alpha, we show you 90 knots, 90 knots on the ground. And they do that sing-song voice. That's how they talk. And it makes you feel kind of cool. Right after that, a twin Bonanza came up to pimp the guy for speed, I guess. And LA Center, Twin Beach, whatever. You got a ground speed readout for us? And Center likes it. God, it's Friday. Why me, God? Please, just get off free. But he's going to talk to him like he's Air Force One. Twin Beach, we show you 121, 20 knots on the ground. And right after that, a Navy F-18 out of Lemoore popped up on frequency. And you knew it was a Navy guy because he talked really slick on the radio. Center, Dusty 5-2 speed check. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Dusty 5-2 has a ground speed indicator in that $1 million F-18 cockpit. It's right there in the heads-up display. Why is he calling Center to broadcast his speed? I get it. We have just the meanest, baddest, fastest military jet in the valley today. We're taking our little Hornet jet over Mount Whitney and ripping across Death Valley. We want everyone from Fresno to the coast to know what real speed is. And you can almost hear a little glee in the controller's voice, like, we have put an end to this. Dusty 5-2, we show you 620, 620 knots across the ground. And it was that across the ground. See that little knife, like, I hope nobody else has the nerve to get on frequency now. And there wasn't an airliner from Seattle to San Diego that wanted to be next on Freak. It's sort of an etiquette thing amongst flyers. And a 12-year-old was reaching for the mic button. And I thought, oh, no, wait, Walter's in charge of the radios. I flew single seat all those years, but I'm in the family model now, and I wanted, no, it's the Navy. They must die. They must die now. And I thought, no, but if I do, I'll upset Walter, and I want us to be a good crew. And at that moment, I heard a click of the mic button in the back seat. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter and I became a crew at that moment. In his best innocent voice, LA Center, Aspen 30. Have you got a ground speed readout for us? You could almost hear a collective gasp on Freak, like, oh, the poor fools didn't hear the previous transmissions. Oh, they got crushed like a grape. It's just a pilot thing. But Center had to give you that same voice. Aspen 30, we show you 1,992 knots. across the ground. When I knew I was going to like Walter a lot is when he came back and said, Senator, we're showing a little closer to 2,000. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not hear another transmission on that frequency all the way to the coast. The king of speed lived, the Navy had been flamed, and a crew had been formed. For just a moment, it was absolutely fun being the fastest guys on the block.